The press conference was tense, with flashing cameras and a sea of reporters hungry for a headline. I was standing near the back of the room, watching closely as Keanu Reeves stepped up to the microphone beside former President Donald Trump. The moment Keanu opened his mouth, one journalist shouted a loaded question meant to embarrass him in front of millions. Whispers turned to murmurs, and I could feel the energy shift sharply. He was being cornered. I could see the discomfort in Keanu's eyes, and something in me snapped. I'm a decorated war veteran, and I've seen courage tested in the darkest of places, but this kind of silent attack in front of cameras, it was a different battlefield. Without thinking twice, I pushed past the rows of seats and stood up, raising my voice to silence the room. That man stood up for truth his whole life. Don't twist his words. The entire room froze, all eyes on me. Even Trump looked stunned. But what happened next changed everything. The entire room fell into stunned silence as my voice echoed through the press hall. Keanu turned slightly, his eyes locking with mine for the first time, and I saw something in them. Surprise, respect, and a silent plea of thanks. The reporter who'd tried to humiliate him looked annoyed that someone like me, just a soldier in civilian clothes, had interrupted the moment. But I didn't care. I wasn't there for fame or claps. I knew what it meant to be misunderstood, to be judged before speaking. I stepped forward, ignoring the security guards who hesitated, unsure if I was a threat or a savior. You think you're clever twisting a question to mock a man who's given more to this world than most in this room ever will? I said directly to the reporter. Keanu has quietly donated millions to children's hospitals. He's funded cancer research. And unlike others, he never asked for applause. So why attack him now? The audience didn't know what to do. Some stared in shock, others whispered, and a few actually nodded. Trump leaned toward Keanu and whispered something, and Keanu's face changed. Then, out of nowhere, Keanu invited me up on stage. "Sir," he said into the mic, "whatever you've been through in life, you just showed more courage than this. Whole front row." The crowd erupted into mixed cheers and gasps. I hadn't expected that. But then, Keanu did something that shocked everyone even more. He removed his jacket and revealed something hidden underneath that left the entire hall speechless. As Keanu Reeves slowly removed his jacket, the room grew eerily silent. Even the EDM cameras stopped clicking for a moment, as if time itself had frozen. Underneath, he wore a simple black shirt, but across the chest, a faded military unit patch could be seen stitched near his heart. The emblem was unmistakable. It belonged to the 82nd Airborne Division, my division. Gasps rippled through the audience. I stood frozen, unable to believe my eyes. Keanu looked straight at me and said into the microphone, "My father served in the same unit. He was a paratrooper. He never came back home." The air in the room got heavier. He continued, "I was just a boy when I got the news. No cameras, no speeches. Just a folded flag. That's when I learned what sacrifice really means." I could see his hands trembling slightly, not from fear but from emotion he'd buried deep for years. "So when I see soldiers like you, I don't see fans. I see family," he said, turning toward me. The audience, stunned moments ago, now sat on the edge of their seats, their hearts pounding. Reporters no longer typed, they just stared. Then Keanu looked at the liberal reporter and said calmly, "You mocked a man who fights with emotion. But you forgot. Emotions are earned through real pain, not headlines." The reporter tried to respond, but the crowd shut him down with loud claps. Suddenly, someone from backstage rushed in with a phone, whispering something to Trump. The president's face changed instantly. "We've just received news," Trump announced. "Keanu Reeves has been nominated for a national civilian honor, something that hasn't happened in over a decade." But that wasn't the real twist. Because the reason behind this sudden nomination had a direct link to a secret mission my unit had undertaken, and I hadn't told anyone, not even Keanu, that he had played a silent, life-saving role in it. The weight of the moment hadn't even settled when I felt my pulse spike. Keanu Reeves nominated for a national civilian honor because of a secret mission I was part of? That couldn't be a coincidence. I stepped forward, still in uniform, and cleared my throat as all cameras pointed at me now. "Mr. President," I began, "if I may, there's something the public doesn't know, something even Keanu doesn't know." Keanu turned his head toward me, confusion on his face. "Years ago," I continued, "our unit was deep inside a hostile zone during a humanitarian operation. Intelligence had failed us. We were surrounded and losing time fast. Out of nowhere, a private relief helicopter found its way to us, unauthorized, unarmed, and dangerously low on fuel." The room leaned in. I stared directly at Keanu. "That chopper was funded quietly by someone who refused to reveal his name. We only learned later that the payment was made from a foundation tied to a KR trust. We thought it was a typo. But we now know what KR stands for." Keanu's eyes widened, his lips parting as he whispered, "That wasn't supposed to be public." The president stepped back, stunned, and the liberal reporter dropped his pen in disbelief. "That helicopter saved my entire squad," I added. "I wouldn't be standing here if not for you." The crowd erupted, this time in pure applause. Not for a movie star, but for a man who had been carrying quiet acts of heroism without any cameras rolling. Keanu lowered his head, visibly emotional, then walked toward me. We shook hands, but it wasn't a celebrity moment. It felt like two soldiers honoring a silent bond. And just as the energy began to calm, Trump held up a folder and said, "There's more. Keanu's foundation has been anonymously sponsoring medical bills for over 300 veterans, including some in this very room." That sent a shockwave. People began checking their phones. Names were matching, stories emerging. But even with all this, one detail hadn't yet come out: the final truth about why Keanu started this mission in the first place. And that truth, I knew, would shatter the entire room when it came out. As the press conference turned into a standing ovation for Keanu Reeves, I could see that even he hadn't expected this. But the deeper truth was still buried, and I knew I had to bring it forward. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an old, worn photograph, faded at the edges, colors nearly gone. "This is my brother," I said, holding it up. "He died in combat 15 years ago. We never recovered his body. But we did recover one thing: a torn letter clutched in his hand, one he never sent. It was addressed to someone called KR, and it ended with a line: 'Thank you for showing me that heroes wear humility.'" Keanu's face changed completely, his hands trembling now, and eyes filling with tears. "That letter was from Daniel Prescott," he whispered. I froze. You knew my brother?" Keanu nodded slowly, the camera still flashing. "He saved me during my volunteer trip in Fallujah. I was undercover with a relief team trying to help civilians get to safety. He pushed me out of the way when the bomb went off. I thought he didn't make it." The room fell completely silent. Keanu looked straight at me and said, "I've been carrying that guilt for 15 years. I created the KR Trust to honor the man who didn't hesitate to save me. I didn't know he had a brother still searching for closure." My heart nearly stopped. "He never hated you, Keanu," I said. "That letter, he wrote it while he was bleeding out, not blaming you, but thanking you for showing him that. Kindness still exists in war." Keanu collapsed into a chair, completely overwhelmed. Then President Trump, who had been silent until now, leaned into the microphone and said, "We didn't bring Keanu here today just to honor him with an award. We brought him here because of what he's done behind the scenes. Actions that have changed lives, saved soldiers, and inspired hope. But we now know the truth. He's not just receiving the medal today. He's also going to return one." He handed Keanu a sealed box. When Keanu opened it, everyone gasped. Inside was Daniel's dog tag, one that had been missing for over a decade. "We recovered this from classified archives just this morning," the president said. "It belongs to your hero and to his family." My knees buckled, and Keanu caught me in a hug so tight it felt like my brother was there with us. But even with all this emotion, the biggest shock was still waiting, because a mysterious man in black sunglasses stepped out of the shadows and whispered something into the president's ear, forcing him to pause the entire event. "Ladies and gentlemen," Trump said after a moment, We have just received unexpected intelligence regarding the Fallujah mission. It appears the real story hasn't been told yet. The entire press room went still, the air tense as everyone turned their attention to the mysterious man in black. His presence felt out of place, silent, calculated, almost like he wasn't there for the cameras at all. President Trump, now visibly unsettled, looked at Keanu, then at me and said, "What I'm about to reveal has never been made public before, not even to Mr. Reeves." The man in black handed Trump a sealed file, marked Classified Operation Falcon Light. As the seal was broken and pages revealed, my hands clenched. That was my brother's final mission. According to new declassified intel, Trump continued, Daniel Prescott was never just a frontline soldier. He was recruited by an elite, off-record task force to protect international humanitarian agents, including actors working undercover, to provide aid, one of them being Keanu Reeves. Gasps filled the room. Keanu's eyes widened. Wait, I was told my escort was a Marine named Ghost. That was Daniel? Trump nodded. Ghost was the code name your brother chose, but that's not all. The mission was sabotaged, and we now believe it was an inside job. Keanu looked shaken and I felt like my heart stopped. What do you mean? I asked. The bomb that killed your brother, Trump said slowly, was not placed by the enemy. It was meant for Keanu. Everyone froze. A foreign operative embedded in our own ranks wanted him dead. Your brother discovered the plot, rerouted the team, and sacrificed himself to save Keanu. Keanu dropped his head in his hands, whispering, I never knew. I thought he just reacted in the moment. The room buzzed with murmurs, but the man in black stepped forward again. That operative was never found, but we've reopened the case because of today's events. I couldn't breathe. My brother's death wasn't random. It was targeted, planned, and he chose to take the hit. Keanu stood slowly and turned to the cameras. I came here today, thinking I was accepting an award for service and kindness. But now I realize I'm alive because someone gave everything for me, and I vow from this day forward to uncover every detail, every lie, and every truth behind Daniel Prescott's death. His voice trembled with emotion, but there was fire in his eyes. Then, Keanu turned to me and said, I know I can't bring him back, but will you help me finish what he started? I nodded, not just as a brother, but as someone who now had a mission. But just then, the man in black received a message through his earpiece. He leaned in and said, You're not going to believe this. We found footage, real-time drone video from that night, and it shows something impossible. Daniel may not have died the way we thought. I leaned forward, heart pounding, as the man in black connected a secure device to the screen behind the press podium. Static flickered, then a high-altitude drone. Feed appeared. Night vision mode, dated exactly 3 years ago. I could see the convoy moving through enemy territory, headlights dimmed. Keanu whispered, That's the truck I was in. Trump, eyes narrowed, said, Watch closely. The footage zoomed in. I saw my brother, Daniel Ghost Prescott, jump off the lead vehicle, gun in hand, as he sprinted toward the truck that Keanu was riding in. Suddenly, an explosion tore through the dirt road. Fire lit the sky. Everyone in the room gasped. I held my breath, expecting to see my brother's body fall. But it didn't. The feed replayed in slow motion. A second figure emerged from the dust, limping, but alive. Pause it right there, I shouted. The screen froze on an image that made my knees weak. My brother, covered in ash and blood, wounded, was being dragged away by 2 unknown men wearing black tactical gear, not American uniforms. Keanu stared in disbelief. Who the hell are they? Trump turned to the intelligence officer. We believe they're part of a rogue shadow unit, possibly ex-intelligence turned mercenary. They've been known to abduct high-value targets, and Daniel may have been one of them. I was stunned. You're telling me my brother didn't die in that blast? We don't have confirmation, Trump replied, but this footage, buried in the system until just hours ago, suggests he survived and was taken. Keanu's voice shook. So they covered it up, Because they didn't want anyone asking questions. Exactly, the man in black said. And if he's alive, he's likely being used for something far darker than we ever imagined. Keanu clenched his fists, tears in his eyes. We've got to find him. The room was silent, but then the doors burst open again. A woman, mid-40s, sharp features, wearing a military badge I didn't recognize, walked in. That won't be easy, she said, because I used to be part of the same unit that took him. Everyone turned to her. I stepped forward. Who are you? She stared directly at me and said, My name is Captain Mira Voss. Your brother once saved my life. I owe him everything. And I've been waiting 3 years for the right moment to come forward. Because now, I know where he is. The entire room froze as Captain Mira Voss stood under the blinding lights, her presence calm but filled with weight. Keanu walked toward her slowly, his voice low. You were part of the unit that took Daniel? She nodded once, her eyes heavy, with regret. Yes, but not willingly. I was embedded within the operation undercover, trying to dismantle it from the inside. But they moved him before I could act. Since then, I've been gathering intelligence in silence, waiting for someone with enough power to help expose the truth. That someone is you, Mr. Reeves. Trump stepped down from the stage and joined us, clearly shaken. Why wasn't this brought to me sooner? Mira didn't hesitate. Because this isn't just a military operation. It's a private network, funded by corporate ghosts and political exiles, the kind of people who don't show up on official lists. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Keanu turned to me, jaw clenched. They took your brother because he stopped something they didn't want stopped, but now we stop them. Mira pulled out a small device and tossed it on the table. A 3D projection sprang to life, an underground base map somewhere in the mountains of Eastern Europe. He's here, she said, and if we don't move within the next 72 hours, they'll vanish again, maybe for good. I stared at the map, my mind racing. This had escalated from a press conference to an international rescue mission in less than an hour. Keanu suddenly took control of the room. I'm going with you, he said. I owe him my life. Mira raised an eyebrow. You sure you can handle this? It's not a movie. Keanu didn't flinch. That's exactly why I'm going. Trump looked at his Secret Service, nodded once, and said, You'll have what you need, jet, team clearance, just bring him home. But then Mira hesitated. There's one more thing you need to know, she said. Daniel isn't just being held. He's being experimented on. They were trying to turn him into something else, something that can't be controlled. My heart stopped. What do you mean? She looked at me with sorrow. I mean, he might not be the same brother you remember when you find him. Keanu whispered. Then we're not just saving him. We're saving whatever humanity he has left. We were in the air within 6 hours. A government-issued stealth jet, previously, reserved for top-level emergencies, sliced through the night sky toward the coordinates Mira had given us. Keanu sat across from me, eyes closed but clearly awake, his fingers twitching restlessly on his knees. I watched him, wondering how a man known for acting had become the very definition of real-life courage. Mira briefed us while pointing at live satellite feeds. The facility is buried under a false geothermal station, she explained. No one goes in or out without biometric clearance, but I have a way. I used to be one of them. The plan was risky. Parachute in, breach a secondary entrance built during early construction, and move through the inner corridors before security could react. Trump had mobilized a quiet support unit, but this mission, this risk, was ours alone. As we approached the drop zone, Keanu turned to me. Whatever happens down there, you don't give up. Daniel needs to see your face again. That's what's going to bring him back. The parachute jump was rough. Winds were harsher than expected. But we landed undetected on a snowy ridge just above the hidden hatch Mira had mentioned. It took her retina scan and an encrypted phrase to unlock the old panel. Once inside, the temperature dropped, and so did my hope. The hallway smelled of chemicals and silence. We found the first lab empty, but the second had a man slumped over a terminal. Mira rushed forward, checked his pulse, gone. But what he left on the screen made my blood freeze. Security footage of Daniel. He was in a room with white padded walls, restrained, eyes open, but vacant as if the soul behind them had gone dark. Keanu stared at the footage, jaw clenched. "We're close," he whispered. Suddenly the facility lights turned red. An alarm shrieked overhead. "They know we're here," Mira said, drawing her sidearm. I pulled out the key Daniel gave me years ago when we were kids. It had been part of a game, a treasure hunt. But now I understood. It wasn't just a memory. That key was meant for this. I showed it to Keanu, and he nodded. "Let's go get your brother." But just as we reached the final corridor, we found it sealed, and someone waiting on the other side of the glass. A man in a black suit with pale, scarlet skin and a cruel smile. "I was wondering when you'd come," he said over the intercom. "Keanu Reeves, the movie star turned hero. Let's see if your story ends with a happy ending." He pressed a button and the room behind him filled with smoke. Daniel's room. "No," I shouted. Keanu slammed his fist against the glass. "We're not too late," he growled. But the next moment, we heard something terrifying. Not a scream, not a cry, but a voice, deep, broken, familiar, saying our names. "Is that you, brother?" My legs buckled. I had waited years to hear my brother's voice again, but I never imagined it would sound so hollow, like it had been pulled from the bottom of the sea. "Daniel!" I shouted, slamming my fists against the reinforced glass. Keanu was all ready, scanning the control panel beside the door, his fingers dancing over buttons until Mira screamed, "That's it! The code on the footage!" She yanked a flash drive from the dead technician's computer and plugged it into the panel. Lights blinked, systems hummed, and then slowly, the door hissed open. But we were too late to rush in. That man in the black suit, who now looked at us with the calm of someone who had already won, stepped forward and said, "He's been conditioned to forget you. If you go in now, he might kill you, but Keanu, he remembers you." My heart dropped. Keanu looked back at me with tears welling in his eyes. "I'll go," he said. "If there's even 1% of your brother left, we'll bring him back." Then he walked into the smoke-filled room alone. At first I heard nothing, but then came shouts, grunts, the sound of a chair smashing. I wanted to go in, but Mira held me back. "Trust him," she said. Then suddenly, silence. Long, heavy silence, and out of it came two figures, Keanu, bloodied but smiling, and Daniel, dazed, leaning on his shoulder. "You came," Daniel whispered, looking at me. "You really came." I ran to him and we hugged like we were kids again, like the years apart had just been a bad dream. The man in the suit was gone, vanished. We never found him again, not even in the government database. Trump later held a private meeting with us, thanking Keanu for his heroism and promising to protect Daniel. But nothing mattered more than what happened next. At a press conference a week later, the world watched as Keanu stood with me and Daniel on stage. The crowd roared, but he raised a hand and said, "This story isn't about a celebrity, it's about brothers, about sacrifice, about never giving up hope even when the world tries to erase it." Tears filled many eyes, including mine, because if Keanu hadn't stepped in, I would have lost my brother forever. And as cameras flashed and the world cheered, I leaned into the mic and said, "Please subscribe channel for Keanu Reeves. Respect. Thanks."